Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show, where we celebrate the innovators driving change in the education industry. At Edison OS, we've worked with over 500 knowledge entrepreneurs to turn their edtech ideas into profitable businesses. Hi, Tara. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneur Show. Thank you so much for taking your time out for this.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, Tara, first question, what do you do now?
I am a business development manager for Vantageous Digital Learning Solutions. It's an online platform that provides, K through 12 education to students who, for whatever reason, can't participate in a brick and mortar environment.
Right. Got it. Before we, talk more about what Advantageous Digital Learning Solutions do, I'd like to, go back a little bit and then, talk about your journey. If you can walk us through your journey as, because you were into teaching, and then, one of the most unique transitions that I've ever seen is somebody who was in teaching get into business development, right? So if you can walk us through your journey and, your transition, that'll be great.
Well, like so many things in my life, it was largely accidental. So I was teaching for a very long time. I started teaching right after university. I went to Prague and I did my TEFL, so teaching English as a foreign language. And then from Prague, I went to Spain and I was teaching in Spain. Now I went to university here in America, but I am a British citizen. And so it was easy at the time for me to travel within Europe and teach because we were part of the EU. And so I had no intentions of coming back. But then my mother got sick. And so I came home to kind of help with, just with everything going on, just moral support from my folks. And then wound up staying. I did a brief stint in wealth management, and I just no joy in that. So I started tutoring on the side, mostly test prep, standardized test prep anyway. Got quite good at it, to the point where I could sort of guarantee a certain level of results. So I started doing it for other companies. I started teaching, SAT classes, SAT prep classes for various tutoring companies in the area. And I just noticed that they were sort of charging just absurd premiums, probably the equivalent of 300, 400 an hour. And I wasn't seeing very much of that 300, 400 an hour. So I launched my own business for a fraction of what they were charging, but I got to keep it all. And I, as it turns out, didn't have to do too much marketing because word of mouth, especially in this area, is everything. I live just outside of DC, and I garnered quite a few well-known clients. So like the son of a professional football player here, like the Washington at the time Redskins. I taught one of their kids, and then the CEO of Monster.com. He lives here in Great Falls. I taught his kids. And so it just sort of spread like that. And I was doing relatively well, particularly in the fall and spring. And it gave me the flexibility that I needed to help look after my mom, who started to deteriorate much, much worse. And then when she died, I thought, I need to go to something full time because all this free time I have, whilst it was lucrative, wasn't doing me any favors mentally. So I went into teaching in a mental health facility. So I actually worked in a mental health facility, so residential treatment for teenagers who suffer from co-occurring mental issues, substance disorders, eating disorders, things like that. And I taught in that school for a year, both in residential and in partial hospitalization. So I was teaching all subjects, math, history, science, English, and I am fluent in Spanish. So I was teaching Spanish as well. And so I got really good at it and I loved that environment. And then COVID hit. Um, and I got pregnant and I didn't love that I was still going in all the time. And so when I had the baby, I decided to take some time off work, with just about 10 months. But the program we had been using at the mental health facility was Advantages. And so I became the admin within the school for managing the platform, got to know the team very well. And then when I left to have a baby, about 10 months later, the CEO called me and she said, "Do you want to work for us?" And I said, "Of course I do." I knew the platform already, I was familiar with it. Um, so I came on as a student success manager, which basically was the onboarding of new students. So I wasn't teaching anymore, but I was still very involved in the day to day of students and their families. And because I was in management, I would sit in on a lot of their management meetings and just listen to things. And I started to get a few ideas, and it launched with, the return of conferences post COVID. I saw that they were signing up to do a bunch of academic conferences. And I thought that was interesting because I was like, why would you go to a conference where you're surrounded by your competitors? I was like, because you've had such success in the mental health world, why not go to mental health conferences where you're surrounded by prospective clients? And they went, that's a good idea. And they're like, why don't you go? And they sent me and it went very well. And then when they came back, they said, I came back from that conference. They said, tell you what, you've got good ideas and you obviously love the platform and can sell it. And they said, why don't you move over into business development? I never done it before, and I certainly never liked sales, but turns out I had a knack for it, I guess. So that's how that happened.
Right. Great. Thank you for that, Tara.
Yeah.
Going back, you said, sorry about your mother. You said, you were actually successful doing the test prep coaching.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
although you
which,
only charged a fraction of what the other tutoring companies that you used to work
to
for
be fair though,
charged,
I said a fraction, but that's still quite good. I was charging at the time $75 an hour, but
right.
down from 300 or 400 now or whatever the companies were charging them.
Yeah.
You have to remember, I live in one of the wealthiest counties in the United States. The average There's no home within 10 miles of me that is under 700,000. The average household median income is 170,000 per household. We have the best schools, so charging even 75 an hour might sound like a lot, but we're surrounded by many. And I thought if you do charge something a bit more reasonable, you get more clients that way, and word of mouth will do the rest. I'm not interested in price gouging these people. I didn't want there to be a barrier to entry. It's a very big passion project for me that like lowers socioeconomic demographics should have the same access to education as wealthier ones, right? So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. And you said it yourself, although it was lucrative, it wasn't doing any good for you mentally. Am I correct? You
Yeah, post my mum dying, because there's a lot of free time, right? Because I wouldn't have to be anywhere until the kids got out of like proper school, right? So they're in school
right.
most of the day. If they hire me for tutoring services, they're not going to need me till obviously afterwards.
Right.
So I never had to be anywhere till 3:30, 4 o'clock. Um, so that gave me rather a lot of time in the day to sit around and think. And at that particular point in my life, that wasn't very healthy for me. So,
Right. Right. Got it. So, that's when you join, a mental health facility or
mhm,
something like, where you teach a lot of subjects.
mhm.
Uh, but so it wasn't really about the money for you at any point. I mean, it wasn't difficult for you to make the minimum amount of money that you need.
No, money finds me. I've always found if you try too hard to chase it, it always seems to elude you. So
Wow.
it's
You
not a
just said
good.
money finds you. Okay.
Yeah,
Is
well, I
that really
mean,
true? I mean, like, is there a method to that?
no. I think if you do things that enrich you, you will be rich. Like if you do things that you're passionate about, money will find you. I think when you just sort of, I suppose that is a method really, because if you do a job solely because it pays you, you're never going to really be the kind of person who stands out. Your performance is going to reflect the bare minimum, which is all you're doing. You show up, you log in, you log off, and that's the end of it. But I think I've always chosen to do things that I felt I was passionate about, and then money will find you. It's not, I don't make loads, it's education. I mean, education isn't going to be, it's never going to make you rich, but you can do okay. You can do okay. So no, I don't do things for money ever. Otherwise, I would have done
Right.
something completely different, right? Like IT or some other
Yeah, I
sales.
mean, you could have just continued and expanded your test prep coaching itself.
Yeah, could have done.
Uh,
But I never had, that had run its course in my life. I was starting to burn out, and
right,
I never
right,
do anything past the burnout period because again, you're just, I would then be depriving my clients, so I can't do
right,
that. I could end on a good note while everyone still thought I was really, really good instead of burning out and then proving that I wasn't.
right. And you said when the lockdown, the 2020 pandemic happened, that's the point that you were working as a teacher with the mental health facility. Is that correct?
Yes, I
And
was working as a teacher then.
yeah,
And I was on site for most of it. Because at first I was in a residential and then I went to partial hospitalization, which means that the students or clients rather, they don't live on site. They got there at 8 in the morning and they would leave there at 6 at night. So it's partial hospitalization, meaning that they spend 10 hours a day there, but they
right,
don't live there. So I used to get there around 7:30. So that was in Maryland. I used to drive to Maryland to do that. And then when the pandemic was at its worst at the very beginning, they sent us home to do online. So the kids would do their group therapy, all that stuff, still 5 hours a day online and 4 or 5 hours a day with me. But I used to do like sessions with individual kids. So they would have to log in, speak to me in the morning, talk about their goals, things like that. And then I think we were only online for 4 to 6 months, and then they sent us back as soon as they could because these kids,
mm,
the acuity of their illnesses aren't easily treated online. I mean, these kids had severe issues, right? So um, online wasn't really going to work in the long term. So the second they thought it was okay to send us back, they did, but very like and slowly. They would do cohorts. So we did like one cohort would go Monday, Wednesday, the other cohort Tuesday, Thursday, and then
right,
everyone on Friday. So the best they could.
right. Tara, when you said that there was a time when you had a lot of free time on your hands, which wasn't really helping you, is when you had to go find a job.
Yeah.
That's one reason. And then, was it conscious of you to go get a job at a mental health facility as a teacher, or were you just looking to teach? What was that all about? Or was it just the job that you got when you searched?
Well, I've always felt I always liked the difficult kids. So I mean, like I've always liked them. We got on really well. I don't know if it's because I act like a teenager. I don't know. Most teachers don't like adolescents. A lot of them don't. They prefer the young ones. I was
Right,
always the complete opposite. I liked the teenagers. I like the difficult ones. I like the attitude. Um, and I had particular success with that demographic. Again, I don't know if it's an attitude thing. I do dress alternatively. I have a lot of tattoos, like things like that. I think it gave me an edge with that demographic that a lot of people didn't have. And then obviously, so I wanted to work with teenagers. I knew that. And mental health has always, again, been sort of a passion project. I do believe that it's still stigmatized to seek treatment, particularly in the West. Well, both worlds, right? Western and Eastern. And even as much as they make they've made a big inroads here in the States, and I think they're attempting to do the same in the UK, but it's by no means where it should be. So these kids were kind of forced into treatment one way or the other. They didn't know it. It was good for them, but a lot of them really resent being there. And I think I liked being the face that, like, they could, I liked being there when they were scared. I liked, a lot of them have big traumas and fears surrounding school, and I really enjoyed, changing their minds about that. And I really did like watching them go through. I mean, they're only with us for anywhere from 2 months to 6 months at the absolute longest. So you kind of get used to the kind of rolling population. But, I liked watching them go through it and then come out on the other end. It was always nice for me. But and I probably should have gone somewhere like that when I was a kid if it had been, more available. But yeah, I love mental health. I think youth mental health is so important because we do have a suicide crisis.
Right.
And I love kids. I love teenagers anyway. I like my kid. I like my small kid, but I don't like small kids as a rule. So teenagers are my jam. So yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Tara, this question may have a certain assumption, but please feel free to, correct me or break it. But I'm just going to go with it. You said you were in a tough space after your mother passing away. And,
Yeah.
you had a lot of time. You didn't want a lot of time with yourself. And hence you kind of, looked out to get yourself engaged. But
Yeah.
the normal thing, what happens during these times is that people go to a therapist. But here it seems like, you offered therapy in a way.
Hmm.
Of course, you did teach. I mean, is that, can you address this a little bit, talk through this? Am I reading it right?
Yeah. It's therapeutic to help people, right? So I talk about a lot of mental health therapy, like stuff like that, how it's stigmatized. I'm not exactly the queen of following my own advice.
Right.
I also come from, a culture that has not embraced therapy. I mean, like my dad and, I was raised incredibly British in that sense. And like, we just don't really do talk therapy in our house, and I'm working like on myself in that sense, like to get there on my own. But the
Right.
best therapy I've always found, and my husband says this all the time, if you're down or you're sad, the very quickest way to get yourself out of it is to channel that energy into helping someone else. I just tried to, in certain moments, not be destructive, just try and be constructive. And that seemed like a good way to do it. And it seemed like, strangely enough, when you're really sad, you're like, I'll go surround myself with other sad people and try to make them happy. So, and maybe I'll just feed off that in my own way. But I really enjoyed it. I didn't leave because I didn't enjoy it. I just, you know pragmatically couldn't do it with a newborn,
Yeah, you got
particularly.
pregnant. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I was pregnant the entire last year. I worked there, and then they used to give us like a lot of PTO to recover because it's a high burnout industry, mental health. So we definitely got more PTO than the average job here. As you well know, America is not known for treating its employees fantastically, which is a good thing because my company didn't treat mothers fantastically. That was the one downfall of the mental health facility, is that they gave us something like 3 weeks maternity leave, which is so bad. But by the time I had my daughter, I had not taken a day off in a year and a half, and I had 11 weeks of holiday or 12 weeks of holiday saved up. And so
Hmm.
I just tacked it on to the 3 weeks and then quit at the end of it. So I had a bit of a maternity leave, but it was really just clever planning on my part. But I would have stayed otherwise. I was happy enough there. But it was just really tough. I couldn't, they wanted me back at, 50 hours a week because they wanted to stretch my hours and then, an hour commute each way, and just wasn't feasible. But I would definitely see myself doing it again one day if things were different, when she's older and maybe in school or something.
Got it. Great. Thank you so much for sharing
Mhm.
what you did right now. Because I mean, one of the things that I take away from this piece of conversation is that, if you are probably down, not in a great mental health space yourself, you can probably, try and help others who are in the same place. Because, I was also thinking about, you said you don't know why you got along really well with adolescents, other teachers would prefer not having them and
Yeah.
would deal with younger or older. That's probably because, you related to them and they related to, and that's probably why, because things happen. But I do want to, like, break down and kind of try and get as much specifics as possible, so that teachers who have no idea, who are finding it difficult to work with uh, adolescents who have, who are not in a mentally great space. So
Right.
apart from, you said, you did point out about, it could be the your persona physically, the way you dress, tattoos and stuff. But
Yeah.
what are some of the traits or habits, that you think was kind of different from the other teachers that you've been under or you've worked with, that you think worked?
I think the biggest mistake with teenagers is like people talking to them like they're still children, because every teenager is going to balk at that. They don't like being taught to like they're children. They all think they're grown up. They all think they know everything. So you have to kind of meet them on their level. Start talking to them like they're grown up. Start like, when I say I got on with them really well, it doesn't mean I wasn't firm. I'm plenty firm, but they appreciated the way I did it as well. And you have to be willing to get a little gritty with them, because if you talk to them, they're not interested in prim and proper. Especially this particular demographic, students who are troubled. They're going to try and shock you. They're going to swear at you. They're going to throw things at you, like they're going to do whatever they can to try and get a rise out of you. So if you meet them on their level, shock them first. Like, swear right back at them, like whatever the case may be.
Mm.
Casually swear, casual be like be. I never had them calling me Ms. White. I never had them. I would crack jokes with them all day long, all day long. I would make fun of them. They make fun of me, and it didn't. It felt. I tried to build a rapport that was more like less student teacher and more sort of like older friend, like someone, you know, I would just crack jokes and make fun of them, try and get a rise out of them too. And if you can make them laugh, you've crossed over the first big hurdle, because that's teens are determined not to smile at you. They don't want to give you like even an inch. So if
Right.
you can do something unexpected and cross that first hurdle, get them to laugh, you're in there. Like it's fine. I had one student who I remember very, very well, um, who, and this sounds crazy, but keep in mind the kind of facility I was in, when would sometimes act like a dog and then go under the table and just sit under the table and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, mate, I don't care where you do algebra. You could do it under the table, in the toilet, wherever you want to do it. But as long as that worksheet's done at the end of today, I don't really give a crap. Like, and it's
Right.
like, and you, and like everybody in the class laughed, because normally the last teacher would be trying to grab him and pull him out from under the table. It's like, why? Let him work under the table. Like, of all the things that's happened in this facility, that is one of the least weird and harmful. So, like, whatever, you know. Or I've just had so many kids. They're so angry, or they're just trying to. They don't need one more person to be angry with them. They're carrying enough anger. Like, so getting annoyed at them, letting them shock you. I mean, if you're prim and proper and can't handle certain things, you shouldn't be working that around teens anyway. Like, they're all,
Mm,
they're all just learning their boundaries and limits, and they're going to try and push them every time. They're going to talk about things that are shocking, like the way they talk, or, it's not the way we would in public, but teens will. And so getting worked up or allowing yourself to get worked up over that is stupid. So I've seen people come and go, and particularly one who we did have one who just never should have been working with teenagers, because she was not. She had no idea how to connect to them. She would have been well suited around 4 or 5 year olds, but not around teenagers. And they see that and they leap on it. It's like sharks smelling blood in the water. Like, she was done for. And I was like, you are lost. You found yourself in the wrong facility. But if I've had luck, it's because of that. It's just, you gotta meet them on their level. You want them to respect you. You gotta talk like them, act like them. Don't be them, and don't sink to their level, but meet them on their level. Yeah.
right, right. Great stuff. Tara, do you think teachers can be trained to kind of, be this way that you described the last few minutes? Is it, can
I
they be
mean,
trained?
anybody can be trained to do anything in theory, you know.
Right.
Practice is a little bit different, because, again,
Mm,
if it's not genuine, they will sense it. They're so clever. All kids are clever. They pick up on things. My 2-year-old picks up on nuances of personality, so I as long as it's genuine, then yeah. Like, so it's less about teaching them how to meet them on the level, and more just, you've got to weed out the ones who aren't for real. Like, if they're just there to pick up a paycheck or whatever the case is, then no, you can't train them. But if you've got people who are genuinely passionate and love the idea of molding the next generation, and they genuinely like the next generation, because I've met plenty of teachers who don't, which has always baffled me. If you don't like children, why did you get into teaching? So, but I've met a lot, and they brag about it. They'll go, "Yeah, I can't stand kids." Well, time to retire then.
right. And Tara, when you say, this was a mental health facility, what were the kind of, um, you know, problems that you faced with? Like, were there a spectrum of them, or was it something like ADHD, or, stuff like that?
No, it's a bit more serious than ADHD. It's a gamut. It's a definite spectrum. Now, if they're seriously homicidal or suicidal, for the most part, they'll be put into hospital. But there's kind of that right underneath that. So we had kids with substance abuse issues, but specifically weed and alcohol. Anything that was worse than that, again, they would have to go to a separate facility. So substance abuse, severe depression, homicidal ideation, suicidal ideation, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, hypersexuality, or sexual trauma, abuse of any kind. We had a lot of rape survivors, eating disorders, so anorexia, bulimia. Uh, what else do we run into? Quite a lot.
Wow,
Just
this is quite a list in itself. Uh, but I mean, usually it's a psychiatrist or psychologist, that kind of sit and talk with these kids, and then they have to probably go through therapy and stuff like that.
yeah, they had that
How
too.
did Okay, but I mean, I'm asking from a place where, I'm kind of like wondering, how did you, were you trained to handle people like this, or how did they think that you could do the job?
Well, they were just looking for teachers, and we went through extensive training. Yeah, obviously,
Right.
we
Okay.
had to do like psychiatric training, recognizing signs of imminent danger. We had to learn how to restrain them in a way that was legal. Like there's very serious laws around restraining children. So if they attack you, what to do. If they run
Right.
away, which they did all the time. Like at one point, it felt like one week, it felt like somebody ran away every day. And so you're just walking behind them in the street, making sure they don't hurt themselves because you can't physically restrain them. So you just have to like convince them to come home. Um, so we did go through extensive training with regard to mental health safety and procedures. They're very serious about that because there's quite a lot of liability involved if you aren't properly trained. And the way it worked was these kids, they come in, and for insurance purposes, they have to be in therapy 5 hours a day, which means group therapy, individual therapy, rec therapy, which is like recreational therapy, art therapy, music therapy, animal therapy. Even lunchtime was like a food group, teaching you how to view food in a healthy way, and then 4 hours a day they're with me in school. And so they're doing most of them on the online platform that I work for now, which is Advantageous School International. Most of our students were on our platform, so that was a relatively easy, contained platform, all different grade levels, of course. So like I would have somebody as young as 14, somebody as old as 18, 13, 14, and then 18, 19, well, at 19, they aged out of our program, but not the school program, but the insurance program. So every day looked completely different, but yeah, that's kind of what I liked about it. The mental health, you never knew what you were going to get. Some of our kids were particularly acute. And so there's teaching, obviously, but then there's the added interesting things that might happen, suicide attempts or something like that. And you have to really keep an eye out for like, so I was teaching, but I'm also watching, like,
Right.
you know, it could be anything that gives it away. Like, oh, maybe their writing has gotten quite dark, or they're showing signs and symptoms of regressive behavior. Maybe they're idealizing, again, destructive behaviors or whatever the case may be. And then so the added interest piece was like, I'm obviously teaching, but I have a constant dialogue with all of their therapists, so letting them know what's going on, what I'm seeing in school, how's it going. And keep in mind, we're all working in this massive house. It's like literally a mansion where 8 to 10 girls live, and there's offices for all of us. So it's a very unique situation working in a gigantic mansion with 10 girls who live there. So I often ended up helping out in other departments, going and waking them up in the morning, for instance, or bringing them down for breakfast, or, just helping the care coordinators with whatever they may need, sitting with them at lunchtime, which is another thing. You asked me about teachers who don't do well,
Right.
or, with teenagers or whatever the case may be. The person I was thinking of that didn't do well in that environment kept herself very, very separate from our kiddos. Like, never. I mean, to them, she had a very strict boundary between them. It was very clear that she was a teacher and they're the students. So, but one thing I always did was I tried to have lunch with them at least twice a week, sit down on the floor with them, you know, just be with them in a way that's not always just academic, because if they see you as a friend or a mentor or a confidant, you're already easing some of the trauma and innate mistrust that all kids have about school. Like, school
Right.
sucks. It's boring. I don't like this, but if at least there's someone there they're like happy to see, that's the first step to getting them into the classroom. So not I wasn't married to that whole student teacher. Like, there's still a way to maintain healthy boundaries, but it doesn't need to be rigid like that.
Right. Were you ever attacked?
Yes. Yes. With a chair a few times. Um, with like various school instruments. But they didn't have access to weapons of any kind. So there's not much they really can hurt you with. I mean, they could try and hit you, which they have. Um, I mean, outside of it, I'm a pretty scrappy individual. Outside of anything having to do with school stuff, I'm a pretty scrappy individual. You'd have a hard time getting to me if you really wanted to. But yeah, and that's part and parcel of working in mental health. You gotta accept you're gonna walk away with a few bruises sometimes. We had one girl who used to bite us.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, because of because you knew where you were working and the kind of training that you got, um, it is of course rational to not be angry theoretically, but instinctively would you get angry and you had to kind of tell yourself, oh, this is not any normal situation, or you had gotten blended in so much that you wouldn't feel anger but you would only be acting in self-defense?
I never got angry. I
Right.
mean, I suppose I would have. I never had to act in self defense. Like, even while being attacked, we're already navigating the situation in a way that makes sense with the policies and things. So I can't react back. And I don't get angry because, quite literally, I don't think it's their fault. They're not in control. I'm the adult. I'm supposed to be in control. I can be in control. Um, and to be honest with you, I genuinely think that none of them would do anything nasty if they could control it. I mean, we did have a couple kids, very, very few. I've seen hundreds of kids come and go, and I can count probably on one hand the ones who I would have told you are beyond redemption. I mean, everybody's got a reason, right? Everybody's got something going on, whether it's real or imagined. They've all got a reason why they're acting this way. And I just don't think that children are just bad. They're not. They're just. So I never got anger. Mild irritation, maybe, but certainly nothing that would cause me to lash out. Because again, they're children, and I'm not. I'm well into my 30s. That's like they're 15 years old. So what was I like at 15? And if you can remember that, you can afford them quite a bit of grace, because chances are, if you look through the microscope, none of us come out looking very pretty at 15.
Yeah. Great. Tara, how did advantages happen for you?
So, like I said, I did use it whilst I was at Newport, which was the mental health facility. I
Oh,
was very,
right. I'm sorry, I
yeah,
missed that piece of information. Okay,
yeah.
you
So we
used it
used
as a
it.
consumer. Okay.
Yeah, we used it as a consumer. I used it as a consumer. Um, and I'd even worked with the team, because every facility at which Advantages is used has someone on their staff who's managing the platform, right? So
Right.
post implementation, obviously, you're going to be conversing with Advantages a lot, because we don't just hand you a platform and then walk away, right? So
Mm,
like
mm, mm, mm.
it's ongoing support, things like that. So whilst I was at Newport, I had a lot of interaction with a woman named Jen Tynan at Advantages, and we became quite friendly because we were always on the phone with one another. I was always, she was helping me do like audits of our numbers, or I'd get confused and I'd call her for support. She was always on the phone, always ready, always available to talk, and she was super helpful. And she's still super helpful. She still works for Advantages. So when I left Newport, I offhandedly mentioned to Jen, well, maybe one day I'll come and work with you because I already know the platform. And obviously, I knew that it was a remote company because they're headquartered in Reno and they've got people all over the United States. So it's always been a remote company for the most part. And so she said, yeah, that'd be awesome. She's like, I'll talk to Sandy, who's one of the founders. And I tried to get in touch with Sandy, just to tell her my situation, that I would like to be working remotely if I could, because I had a baby and everything. And she was just so busy, and I forgot about it. And I took some time off. And then 10 months in, because I remember my daughter was about 9 months old. And I was at a wedding, and my phone went off, and it was Sandy, who I hadn't thought about in 8 months, and she goes, are you still available to work? And I go, yeah. She goes, do you want to come work for me? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. And so she offered me quite a pay bump because teachers here don't make a bunch. And it was all remote, and it was a perfect situation at a time that I needed it to be. And I came on, and that was 2 years ago, nearly. And so, like I said, one of the cool things about such a small company, because we are small, one of the good things about that is that like every voice counts and every voice matters. And obviously you've seen like they've given me a lot of leeway to grow, or even just to have ideas. And that honestly, I think has less to do with being a small company and more to do with being a woman owned and run company. No offense, just means less ego, like across the board.
I remember this from the earlier
Yeah,
call as well.
yeah. Women just don't operate the same way. We don't worry about ownership or ego or anything of that ilk. If you've got an idea, it matters, and if it's what helps the company, helps everybody, right? So it's
Yep.
been very cool to actually have ideas and have people invest in those ideas. It's confidence building, and I think that's the smart thing about us. The management that we have is that it's been very cleverly done. Like they've hired the right people and they've invested in the right people, I think. Um and it's definitely worked for them. So yeah, but our C-suite is almost entirely women, which is
Right.
unique too. So
Right.
that's just a fun perk. That's all.
I think we're going to see that a lot more with time. So,
Yeah, I bloody hope so. About time.
yeah. Tara, it says, Advantages School International on the website. And in the logo or in the emblem, it says Advantages Digital Solutions. So you're also a digital learning solution, like as in you also offer platform as a service, and you are also a school that offers content along with the platform. Is it like a
Correct.
curriculum, a teaching program? Okay, can you?
Correct.
Okay,
So Vantageous Digital Learning Solutions is a platform
right.
into which content of any kind can be uploaded, right? And the platform is ours, it's built by us. We have a crack tech team. They're so good. Most of them are in Vietnam. But
Mm,
so our CTO is in Chicago. But we built it. It's like the UI, the UX, all that good stuff is designed by us. The school, we use a third-party content provider, and we became accredited. So we're unique in that we're one of the few content like school, actual online schools that are accredited. So meaning a diploma from us is just as valid as any other high school. We
Right.
became accredited through Cognia, which is one of the biggest accreditation bodies in the United States. And we're NCAA approved, so student athletes can graduate from us. And we're on the University of California A through G approved list. So the platform itself can be used however is needed, right? So we are international. I think we're in like 42 countries. And we do a number of different things. Most commonly, like we're in India, we've got ASI Middle East now as well. That specializes more often in dual diploma. So that means that we work in tandem with the home country's curriculum to provide them a dual diploma. So they'll get their home country's diploma and also meet all the criteria for an American one. So if they want to travel to America, go to school in America, they'd be able to do that. So that's where the platform is most often used. I have visions that we could do so much more with it. So any kind of content, like we've been working with mental health, we've been doing substance abuse, and we do have adult learners as well, because you don't age out of our program. So you can be 25 and come back and get your high school diploma, which is great. But because we work so often with mental health and recovery communities, I'd love to get content in there that was like recovery support services, we call it RSS, that they offer in a lot of rehab. So like reassimilating back into the world post rehab. I'd love to have content like how to dress for a job interview, how to write a CV, how to rent a flat, how to pay taxes, like how to introduce yourself to people, like anything like that. I'd love to. The problem is that we're not content writers by trade, and I just haven't found a content provider that has specifically those things. Like, it's obviously piecemeal. I could pull it from loads of different sources, but I don't know. I'm still mulling that one over. But yes, right at the moment, that's the Advantageous School International is under the ADLS umbrella,
Got
right?
it. Got it. Thank you so
But
much
it's
for
definitely not
explaining.
the only product.
Right. Right. Got it. Interesting. You also you spoke about 42 countries and stuff. Because I'm in India, let me just kind of take India as an example. And if you can, you said, correct me if I'm wrong. You said uh, you offer dual diploma for people in other countries. Where if they enroll into a program that's offered by Advantages School International, they can travel to the US. Is that what you said? Is that right?
Hmm.
So you mean
Yeah.
to say it's another way of getting visa to travel to the US?
Oh, we don't offer visas. I mean, if they were going to come here to study, they could get student visas on their own, because that's what a lot of international students do. What I meant is they could get accepted into American universities because they would have had all the prerequisites for university. So, for example, in order for your average American high school student to go to university, they have to have accumulated 20 credits. 4 years of math, 4 years of English, 3 years each of science and social studies, 2 years of a foreign language, a year of music or art, a year of an elective, and 2 years of PE and health, with at least half a credit of that being health. So that's 20 credits, right? So for an international student, right, there would have been no reason in a lot of cases for them to have studied, say, US history, right? Because to assume that kids in other countries have to learn about American history is somewhat egotistical. um, so they often haven't, right? So Advantages will say, as long as you do the 4 years of English and the US history and the stuff, we can award you an American diploma, because you will have done, like, say, the math and the sciences through your home country. because that's pretty universal, right? Biology, chemistry, physics.
Right.
The only thing that isn't is the English and the US history and the government and the econ and stuff. So US history and US government and econ, then once you fulfill those requirements, then you could apply to American universities and say, hey, I've already done the
Mm.
normal American requisites, right, for this. So that's what I mean. We don't offer visas.
No, no, no.
Because
I
we're
mean,
an online school.
right, right, right. Got it.
There would be no
So,
need for us to offer visas.
right. So when you said dual diploma, it's like, say, a student in India who wants to do a certain course in the US, but doesn't have the required credits. But since math and science are universal subjects, so let's say that contributes some credit. ADLS would offer English, US history, and econ credits, is what you're saying. Like the content for them to prepare, and then probably give a test, and then earn a credit through you.
Yeah, they'd have to do the classes through us, but yeah, once they do that, they can have a dual American / whatever your home country is diploma.
Wow. Okay. Great.
We've sort of pioneered that, I think, in South America because we have a big South American presence. We've moved into Central America with
Hmm.
Mexico is a big hotspot for us. We're big in Colombia, Brazil, Peru. We launched the Middle East last year, which is big for us, and we're in a lot of Europe. We're in India, huge presence in ASI China. So ASI China is one of our biggest satellite areas, basically. So I wouldn't be surprised if Europe's going to follow eventually. Um, they tend to be American schools abroad, but also it's especially with the influx of tech workers, right? So this is really good
Right.
for China and India specifically because I mean one of our biggest imports is probably tech workers from China and India, right? So why not give them all the advantages we can to come here with?
Got it. Got it. Going back to your transition, from so you joined Advantages as a customer success manager. You onboard students, and then
Mm-hmm.
you said something happened, and then you kind of, even though you were not into sales, but what you did qualified as, kind of identified, oh, you could sell, and then that's how you became business development manager. So what exactly happened for you to like transition, and how's the
Uh,
journey been so far?
well, again, I still don't like sales. But I do like obviously I offered up my idea about the conferences that we went to. And they sort of thought, yeah, why not? Let's give it a go. We'll go to and the first one we went to was quite good. It was huge, huge conference, 6,000 people, hundreds of potential clients all in one place. And we did pull about 2 or 3 clients out of the first one, which is great because prior to that, we hadn't onboarded any clients in years. But we do have big accounts. So it's not like it's not driving our revenue. That's fine. But we hadn't added any new ones. And I was like, the kind of growth that you're looking for, you have to start going where the customers are, not where your competition
Right.
is. So, and
Tara,
since
I'm
then,
gonna interrupt here. I'm so sorry. So when you say clients, is this a mix of both the school and the platform, or is this just the platform clients of the platform that you're talking about?
the school mostly because
Oh, school mostly. Okay.
domestically, our largest, like, just for whatever reason, this isn't how we intended it, but
Right.
domestically, all of our clients are mental health teen facilities, basically,
Mm.
which is definitely not how we intended it. Well, now we have MLS youth academies, which is kind of fun. So, like Major League Soccer. So they've got teen centers where the kids live there and train there. And so we've just started onboarding them. So we weren't designed for mental health treatment. That just sort of seemed to be a niche market that we really did well in. So I mentioned to them, I was like, stop going to education conferences and start going to mental health ones because all of those facilities go there. And even better because we've collected some of the biggest names in that market you'll go and there will be basically testimonials on site to convince the other ones, because you've got Newport Academy is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, teen center monolith that you've ever seen. It's huge. There's like 46 facilities across
Right.
the United States, and they're charging $2,000 a day, you know? So, like, huge. So, if you go to some of these conferences and we mention, oh, well, Newport Academy is one of our clients, they'll go, really? I'm like, yep, we've been with them for 15 years. And then that just kept on working. I don't know. And then the other thing was, you know, I'm chatty. I'm relatively social. And I think that worked well in a conference environment. And as I've pointed out before, like, I won't do anything that I'm not passionate about. And I guess they felt if I could speak with passion about a product, that it would sell. And it has, for the most part, worked. So then I came back in the conference and they said, how did you feel about being in business development instead? And I was like, brilliant. Love it. Let's do it. And so now I manage all of our existing partnerships, along with that Jen Tynan that I mentioned. She and I still work closely together.
Right.
But we do a lot of account maintenance. So like my day will look like answering emails from our partnerships. One's having a tech problem, one's got questions about transcripts, so it's either fielding the questions to the appropriate parties or calling people, answering it. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn trying to nurture new relationships, or see where people are going, which conferences people are going to. I actually attend a lot of conferences. We've been to 2 already this year, 2 more to go. I'm headed to Denver in 3 weeks, so we'll go to Denver, and then in November we'll go back down to Florida. And I was just in Palm Springs earlier this summer, so it's been a bit of a wild ride. And so I do a lot of the conferences. I also launched a tutoring center, so I did one-on-one tutoring for kids who maybe the online platform, they need a little bit of help. So I launched that and I managed that. And so I hired someone to help me manage that. And yeah, it's good. It's busy. Definitely busy.
Great. So
There's
you
obviously it's less structure than what I was doing before. Like, I'm fairly autonomous, so I have to make sure that I'm doing things every day that are building something. I also help with a lot of the marketing. That's part of business development. I love creating marketing material too. I love that stuff. So they'll message me and say, "Can you create a flyer for XYZ? Can you create this for XYZ? Can you design some new business cards? Can you do whatever?" And I'll do that, which makes me happy. So
great.
yeah.
I'm going to ask you this. Okay. I mean, a lot of people, I believe that, a lot of people who want to make money, but, when they realize that sales is one of the places where where they can make a lot of money, but they don't like sales. I mean, I'm not going to ask you how do you make a lot of money with sales. Why this is interesting to me is that, because I'm talking to someone who who says that they hate sales, but then, they're doing a pretty good job at it. So I just want your perspective on, for people who say they don't like sales, just like you, but could, do something successfully in that, So what's the mindset like for you now? And, what would you like to tell them? How can they change that mindset to not think, oh, or maybe not think what they do is sales, if that's the trigger word?
Yeah, don't I've never liked the term sales, because it always conjures up to mind like a slimy used car dealership or something like that. And I don't think I would do sales anywhere else, because I simply cannot sell something that I don't myself believe in. So I don't think I could do, say, pharmaceutical sales or car sales or anything like that. Wouldn't drive me anywhere, like I wouldn't be happy doing something like that. So um I think the reason why I'm good at this is because I come from a unique perspective in which I've been both a consumer of this product. I've got all the touch points, right? I've used it as a consumer, I've used it as an administrator, I've used it as a teacher, and I can speak to every access point of the system. Like I can tell you what the views look like. I can tell you what features it has. You would be shocked how many times SaaS companies employ people who don't actually know their product. Like, yeah, if you can't use it, you shouldn't sell it. But I know a lot of SaaS companies. This is Northern Virginia is like this software as a service is everybody's bread and butter, right? But the salesmen don't actually understand any of the tech products they're selling because nobody told them they had to. Nobody said, sit down, faff about with it, get used to it, try, see what it's like. Like a lot of them just don't use it on a day-to-day basis, but I used it on a day-to-day basis as a consumer for years. So I've seen it through multiple iterations. I've seen the whole overhaul of it. So I remember when it was looked one way and now it's really pretty and aesthetic, and the UI is different and the UX is way better. So I've seen it through multiple iterations, its evolution, its application. And because I used it as a teacher for so long, I do think that my enthusiasm is fairly genuine and people can see that. So, particularly mental health facilities, which is who I speak to.
Right.
And then obviously because I worked in mental health for so long, I know all the lingo and I know all the problems they run into, and I can sympathize and empathize. It's such a difficult and, again, niche market that having somebody who understands the particular woes of that kind of job is really helpful, I think. And I am again, uniquely placed to do that because I am in my company the only one who's ever worked in mental health, and that happens to be the market we're selling to. So I had to come in, and as a result, everybody's learning the lingo, the mental health lingo. Like they didn't know what RTC was, PHP, IOP. So, all the acronyms that come with working in the psychiatric world, all the insurance regulations and requirements, like things like that. Just I had particular understanding of that because again, I'd done it. So getting in there and telling mental health facilities like it's not going to solve all your problems, but it's going to make one area a hell of a lot easier. You're speaking their language. They do not need to be told that something is going to make their job even a modicum more difficult. Like they're already they're on the ground. It's a war zone in there sometimes, man. Like, especially with our more acute kiddos who are throwing things at you or trying to kill themselves every 10 seconds, or like one thing to streamline one process means the world to them. So as long as you can explain that you're not there to make their job any harder, what you're looking to do is just streamline an otherwise stressful part of the job. Because if kids live with you in residential treatment or they attend PHP, which is partial hospitalization, you are required by law to provide some sort of education solution. And what most facilities do is they try to coordinate with the home school to develop some sort of program. But I don't know how familiar you are with education here in America. It leaves rather a lot to be desired. So they don't have the resources to worry about kids who are on their campus, let alone ones who are in mental health treatment facilities, sometimes states away. So that there's a school in Boston doesn't really feel particularly inclined to help out a student who's currently at a mental health facility in California. And so
Right.
here we come and we go, tell you what, you disenroll them from their homeschool, you enroll all of them into the same platform, our platform, where you have one dashboard with all the kids and you can see everything they're working on and it's complete transparency and you can see what their grades are and all that good stuff. It's almost stupid to say no because we've made it easy for you. So as long as we can get in front of the right people, we don't often hear a lot of complaints, or there's not really a lot of obstacle. We're also really affordable, or way more affordable than any other private school, because we charge flat rates. Other schools will charge per course, per whatever,
Right.
but we don't do that. It's just one flat monthly rate for unlimited coursework, which is great. It offers the flexibility that kids in treatment need because they're so often in and out of treatment. We used to call those our frequent flyers. They would come in, be in treatment, relapse, go to hospital, come back from hospital, go home, relapse, come back. We that's that's part of the course too. You get used to it. And so having a education solution that is so flexible, again, this is well suited to that industry. Flexibility is the name of the game with respect to mental health. So my really long and winding answer to your question is I don't sell something. I talk about a product I genuinely love and it sells itself.
Yeah. That's what I was going to summarize. But I was also going to say another thing is that, if you want to sell, go and live the life of your customer for a day or two, maybe, if not for a lot more time.
Or for 4 years. However you need to be able to come from a place of understanding. And the mental health world just requires a lot of understanding. And the one thing you need to know about everybody who does it is if they didn't truly believe what they were doing, they wouldn't be there, because it is often thankless, even more thankless than teaching, which is already thankless enough. But if you're in a mental health facility, it's because you genuinely believe that you can make the
Yeah.
difference in somebody's life, right? And we saw success stories all the time, and I saw Advantageous being a part of that. So another selling point is that I've got testimonials, but I've got real life stories I can tell. I could tell stories about the girl who completed 3 years of school in 1 year and graduated when she didn't think she was going to finish high school, period. And I was like, or I have a student right now who's 18 years old and was still doing ninth grade coursework because he wouldn't stop failing, and I think maybe he was failing on purpose. And finally comes to us after getting expelled from yet another school and is going to graduate finally. So, but
Right.
I don't need to make up stories because I have genuine ones, so I don't need to sell the program, I just need to tell my stories. That's it.
Right. Tara, probably just one more topic that I'd like to touch upon. You said you've got a couple of conferences lined up for you for this year, which are quite some time away. So is there any sort of preparation that goes into before you get to the conferences? If there is, what does that look like?
We have one coming up soon. It's in Denver. It's the Rocky Mountain Symposium on Addictive Disorders. So it's a collective of conferences. They do 4 a year. They've got West Coast, which we were at in Palm Springs, Rocky Mountain, which is in Denver. Cape Cod is this week, actually. They'll do one in Cape Cod, but we're not going to that one. And then they'll do East Coast, which is in Florida. So they got 4 a year. Same organization runs all 4 conferences. So what I'll do prior to is I'll get a list of people who will be at the conference,
Mm.
and I'll just look to see which of them work with teens specifically. Because that's the bulk of our market. We can do adult learners, but the bulk of our market is going to be teenagers, right? So I'll get a list of people who will be at the conferences, look to see which ones work with teens. I'll then hop on LinkedIn and see if I can find who works there, who their CEOs are, who their top level exec, who the decision makers are, write down some notes. Then I'll see if I can find them at the conference. Like I will go seeking them out and I'll just see who can, and it could be talking, just getting to know one another, try and maybe schedule a lunch or a dinner or a meeting. I just try to get put in their way as much as possible, which is exhausting a bit. But realistically, the honest truth is that I will just try and put myself in front of them. Because normally if I can get someone to talk to me, I'm okay. Yeah. Like they'll at least listen or hear me out. No, people don't brush me off like, often. It's just I think I'm just really pushy. I don't know. But I just like to figure out who's who, because if chances are they're going to send their business development people rather than the decision makers. But if I can throw a name out that I already know, then it's more likely that you'll get an introduction. They'll go, I work for, Discovery Health. And I'll go, oh, is Peter Fowler your GM? And they'll go, oh, yeah, you know Peter? And I'll go, yeah. What's his email again? Or, whatever you could do. That's how I prep for conferences. But the rest of the time is just rest up and prepare to have my social battery run out for 3 days. Because it is a lot. It's very tiring. It's a lot to be like on all day for 3 or 4 days, It's one thing to go on a podcast and be charming for 90 minutes, but try being charming for 4 days straight. And unfortunately, a lot of these conferences, like they're on addictive disorders or sobriety or mental health and stuff. So it's not like you've got like wine or anything to help you.
Right.
because for most of those conferences, they're sober conferences. And so you just got to do it, which is tough. But it's fine. I enjoy it. We meet a lot of very cool people. I go with my chief academic officer, Sandy. She's one of the founders, and she and I always do them together. And the cool thing about working again in a small company is she is my boss, but she is also a very, very good friend. So we have a really good time. It's really just like traveling with your buddy and talking about what you do all day long. And we have a lot of fun together too. And I think that it would be a lot different, I think, if I didn't genuinely enjoy everyone we work with, because I really do. We do have like the nicest people. It's the nicest work culture I've ever had. And I've had some toxic ones, but this isn't like that. So that's
Awesome.
about all the prep that I have to do. It's not a lot of prep. There's not much I can do till after the conference. And then after the conference, there's a whirlwind of activity of follow-up. But
Right. That's another thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you might probably think that you've done it all at the conference, but the moment they're out of your sight, and sometimes they just ghost you, or they forget you, or whatever it is, for whatever reason.
Right. Well, so I found some ways around that. So like, it's 2023, and I think it's really stupid to do conferences the way they've always done it in the past, right? Where you just sort of pick up this mountain of business cards, can't remember who's who. And you got to be quite honest, happy to blame them, because I forget who's who the second they walk away from me, right? So there's a number of resources now that have made it a lot easier to do these conferences. So one, my husband actually got it for me. It was this card that I stuck on the back of my phone, and it's called Popl, Popl. And I created a profile on it. And so like it's got my photo, it's got my business email, my name, but most importantly, I think the most important facet of that is the photo, right? And so because face to name.
Right.
And so I put it on the back of my phone, and if I scan it, if anybody can scan it, so they just hold their phone camera up to it and it pops up with my profile. And
Right.
so when they save the contacts, it saves my photo, my business email. So when I text them or call them later, my
They
phone number,
know.
yeah, they know who I am.
Right. Right. Right.
So I don't like these. I've got boxes and boxes of business cards here, like loads, my business cards, and I hate using them because they're people are gonna what? Put them in their wallet, throw them away. Like I have them if necessary, but I don't like using them because I think I think as they're not that much of an asset. So you got to start moving into 2023 using some of these technologies and stuff. Plus, it's a conversation starter. So the second like I wave my phone and they'll go, "Oh, what's that?" And then I go, "Oh, it's Popple. Have you heard of it? Have you like whatever, like you use whatever you can to stick out in their mind." So, I mean, it does help that I'm a little bit different from most of them anyway. But what used to help me in the mental health world, I'm actually fairly standard for like the sobriety and workers of the mental health world. So like if I went into when I used to work I worked in the Senate, I worked in wealth management, like these high powered places, like, and I've always been a little bit alternative. Tattoos and all the rest of it. And I'm very casual and things like that. Mental health world, that is perfect. Tattooed, casual, everybody's does not care about that stuff. Like I don't stand on ceremony. I'm not big on all the trappings of trying to look professional, because I know what I am, and I don't need to dress or act or look a certain way to prove that to anyone. But that's perfect for the mental health world. So in that way, like I do kind of like fit in with that group, and that's helped me a lot too. So because
Right.
I already look like I work in the mental health world. So even though I don't technically anymore, but
Just one final question, right? I mean, it's you've been talking about, okay, somehow get in front of these people that you think are the people that would be decision makers, or that will take you a step closer. And you spoke about flashing your phone, where you have that thing stuck, and then conversation starters. But when it comes, you've got a few seconds of that, whatever it is, but then eventually you'll have to get down to what you're there for, and then talk about what you do. So what do you, I mean, do you just, okay, you know what, I represent Vantages, this is what I'm here to do? Is that how you just go straight transparent, or do you have different lines for different people, or you talk about them and then just want to touch upon this one thing?
I always ask what they do, who their clients are, so I'll go, you know, who do you work for? And they'll say, "Oh, I
Right.
come from Evolve Behavioral Health." And I'll be like, "Oh, what's the average age of your clientele?" And if they say 13 to 17 or 13, they think, "Oh, ours too, actually. We also work with teens." Have you heard of Newport Healthcare? And they have always heard of Newport Healthcare. It's the biggest one. And
Mm,
one thing I had to get some of our management on board with, like, or particularly like Sandy, who's always been quite close to the chest with like telling people who our clients are. Well, that's not privileged information. And why wouldn't I name drop if one of our clients is the biggest teen facility in the United States? So I was like, you can't be afraid to name drop because everybody wants to mimic what they're doing. We already work with them. This is perfect. So, I'll go, what's the average age of your clientele? And they go 13, 17. I'm like, us too. We work with teens. Have you heard of Newport Healthcare? They've been a client of ours for 15 years. Cool. What do you do for them? And then it just like, it goes from there. Like, I very rarely have to invent a reason to talk about it. Schooling for teen residential facilities is a necessity one way. So if they tell me they work for a town, who do you use for your schooling solutions? Or do you just work with the homeschools? Isn't that annoying? Like, and they always think it's annoying because it is annoying. So the, it's not, like I said, if you can get in front of people, it's not a difficult sell. It's just getting in front of the right people,
Right.
really. But yeah, I can find a segue in just about anything. So there's an opening somewhere. I will leap on it as it works out. But
Awesome. Tara, it was an absolute delight talking to you, listening to, whatever you had to share about all of the different things that you spoke about. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for being candid about all those things and sharing so much.
no
Great.
worries. Thank
Yeah.
you for having me.
You know what? The funny thing is, this is the feeling that I have. As much as you've said that, you're not a salesperson, you hate sales, I'll tell you what, there are some amazing takeaways from this conversation for people who are trying to sell. Trust me on that. Yes.
I'll take your word for it then. But
Great.
I business development is always rung a little bit nicer than sales, I guess. But
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Let's just throw
um,
the word
I just
away, maybe, and then
I just think that the takeaway is if you genuinely love it, it's not really selling anything, right? I said just talk about the thing you love and let it sell itself. That's it.
yeah,
If you don't love it, don't sell it. Simple, right?
that's the
So
key
I don't
thing, of
know.
course. But there are a lot of nuances as well.
Yeah.
So
But I just don't know if it's particularly earth-shattering information, but it's just that's always been my policy.
see,
Don't don't
that's the thing about information that's second nature to people who do it, and
well,
that's exactly earth shattering to people who haven't figured out a way. So simple
yeah.
things can kind of light bulbs in people's heads. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Maybe that'll
yeah.
be my next venture, self-help for salespeople. Don't know.
Yeah, you totally should. And you know what? The best thing is, you have a different narrative about it, and because you start off by saying that you hate sales, maybe it makes a difference to the listener, and then there's something different about that narrative and
Yeah,
the way you
maybe,
come from that.
you know, to get past the immediate guy
Yeah.
that knows that
Yes.
when
Yes.
you
Yeah.
hear salespeople, because I'm
Yeah.
like that. What's the
Yeah.
first thing you do when you go into a store and somebody comes up straight to you, like, can I help you? You're like, just browsing, like, go away, you know? The first thing you do is try and get rid of the salesperson. But
Yeah.
if you don't identify that way and
Yeah.
you make sure they don't identify you that way, you can get over the first hurdle. Now, whether or not you get over the rest of the hurdles is a completely different story, but you can get past the first one, which is everybody's innate dislike of salespeople.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I guess that's true.
Great. So, if you do not like sales, and there must have been some people who would have made you hate sales, just don't do that while you sell. That's it.
Yeah. Just don't sell it like they did. But just yeah. It's very simple. Like I just don't know that I have anything new or earth shattering to offer there. I just have always, followed Charles Bukowski's advice. He's a poet and he
Yeah,
always just
I've heard
says,
of him.
yeah,
Uh,
find what you love and let it kill you.
Yeah, great.
That's it.
Thank you so much, Tara.